AP automation, accounts payable automation, accounts payable tips, innovation in AP automation are just some of the issues we're going to discuss with our panel of industry thought leaders in this session, which is part of AP Technology Week. So let's start with AP innovation. And let's talk about perhaps each of you could share what you see as the biggest innovation in the last few years impacting AP automation. So Jen, maybe you could kick us off.
Yes, for us at Capital Group, the biggest AP automation has been the Ariba platform. The last 3 years we've spent, reaching out and trying to figure out what's best for our company, and they picked Ariba, and we've been implementing and onboarding since.
Okay, Matt.
Yes. Hi. So I think some of the biggest innovations that have been happening in AP automation in the past 5 or 8 years is really focusing on the long tail of the supplier transactions that are not joining an ASN or a CSN and are actually, still emailing their invoices or sending those invoices through the postal service. Leveraging technology that is able to observe how those transactions are being entered and ultimately coded and approved, and being able to use artificial intelligence and machine learning to trap all of the institutional information that the humans apply to a transaction and reuse that institutional knowledge over and over and over again, so that these manual transactions no longer represent the burden to AP teams that they have always represented. Using machine learning and artificial intelligence, we're able to automate a much higher percentage of transactions than we've ever been able to automate to this point.
Okay, and we're going to, Mandy's camera isn't working, but we're going to pop up a picture of Mandy here.
Matt, you took my answer. I was going to say, it's the AI-based machine learning versus, some experiences I've had in the past with automation. Everything was template-based. So, you show an image of your invoice, what it's supposed to look like, but if it's scanned 14 times over, it may not look like that original template. So you're still applying the manual practices of inputting that information if the template doesn't pick it up. So the AI and the machine learning has been huge, and it's something I'm really looking forward to in my upcoming project.
Okay, thanks, Mandy. Now, one of the things that has come to at least my attention is the fact that when a lot of AP automation projects are initiated, companies focus on what they need and what will make their life easier, which makes a lot of sense. Don't get me wrong. But how important to the success of an automation project do you think it is to take the supplier's issues into consideration? Mandy, since we have your picture up there, why don't you start?
Sure. It's very important that the two go hand in hand. If you've got a disgruntled vendor who's not getting paid on time, or their invoices aren't being routed, that's going to disrupt the entire supply chain. So I think it's very important to take in some of their issues into consideration when doing an AP automation project. Currently, what I'm looking at on my upcoming project is a vendor portal that will allow the vendor to have limited access and visibility into our system to see where their invoices are in the process and when they're going to get payment. And ultimately, too, that takes away a little bit from my team. So we're not receiving the inquiries from the vendors, and it takes away from our day-to-day duties when we have to go in the system and do the research that they can now do themselves.
Okay. Matt, do you see this?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most often overlooked elements of accounts payable automation, and when we think about the role that the supplier plays in AP automation, it's often well, they just send us an invoice and it's our job to figure out how to pay the supplier. The reality is that many organizations historically have struggled with how to digitize the information that the supplier needs to provide in order to get paid. And that's largely because the technology to digitize unstructured data has really not been sufficient to provide true autonomous processing in accounts payable. So that's when organizations kind of looked at, well, look at what they've done with EDI, 20 and 30 years ago. That data is automatically digitized. Now we just need to process it. So the shift swung from, well, if we can get suppliers to do EDI, can we get them to digitize their invoices other ways by submitting through portals or uploading XML or CSV documents? And that certainly works for a population of the suppliers that are willing to make that kind of investment with an organization. But when you look at the bigger picture of managing a supply chain, managing the friction between the supplier and the buyer is something that the procurement teams, they really focus a lot on, making sure that they have the right relationships with their suppliers. And I think what it really comes down to, in order to get the best AP automation approach, is to give the suppliers choice. And the suppliers really to have free choice. If I want to submit by EDI, submit by EDI. If I want to submit by a network, I submit by the network. If neither of those appeal to me, then I have another channel to submit to. And as a buying organization, we should be okay with figuring out and allowing suppliers to do that. And that's where this technology of applying artificial intelligence, not relying on templates, providing pure autonomous processing manual transactions that operate just like electronic invoices do, is changing the game for buying organizations. Now we're able to offer a choice to suppliers where it's like, hey, you submit your invoices any way that you would like to. You're going to receive the same results from us as a business. We'll process your invoice the same day. It will be approved and ready to be paid in the same day, because we don't have all of the processing backlog challenges that older technology introduced into the accounts payable process. So thinking about the friction associated with getting paid and reducing the friction on the supplier side, I think is a really important element in an accounts payable automation.
And what about you, Jen?
I'm in agreement with Mandy and Matt. I think it's extremely important to have the supplier taken into consideration. Since this is something new that my company's been a part of, the biggest thing that's been impactful to the whole automation process has been the interactions with the suppliers, and in some cases a reluctance to want to come on, and being told this is the way we're doing things now, when they're used to having doing things a certain way. And now it's a big change for them. We're asking them to process it a different way, and if not, then maybe in some cases they may not get processed right away. But I also see that they have a lot of challenges with using the new system, and sometimes even though we provide training and whatnot, people don't always go to training, and once you're in the tool, it's hard to envision what's going to happen when you're actually using the tool. So those are some of the challenges that the suppliers face, and they just get upset and frustrated and just want their invoices paid at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah, you can mandate that your own employees go to training, and even that can be a challenge. But to try and make your vendors do it is another story. All right.
Hey,
So,
Mary, is it okay if I think Jennifer raised an interesting point, and I'd like to just comment on.
Sure.
We talked about supplier friction and managing that, and Jen, it sounds like you're like right in the thick of kind of contending with that. One of the other elements of when we think about where accounts payable time goes, we just heard Jen talk about how much time she's investing in training those suppliers and onboarding those suppliers, and we all know that supply chains are not like a fixed thing. It's not like I have 1,000 suppliers today, and in 6 months from now I have the same 1,000 suppliers. So while you work really hard to convert your supply base to do something some way, in 6 months your supply base has changed. So that effort of keeping your supply base, the majority of them transacting with you in a common way, is always having the kind of the rug pulled out from underneath it as your population of suppliers is changing. So that effort is ongoing. So again, it just highlights how important having a channel for suppliers to submit to that is low friction, easy for them to perform, and is something that the buying organization can get a highly efficient process out of. It really reduces that friction on both sides of the transaction. The procurement teams have suppliers that are happy because they're able to invoice any way that they would like to, and their invoices are being paid quickly, and they're being, it's all predictable. And then to Mandy's point, if they have a desire to go learn something like, hey, when am I going to get paid? Now they have a motivation to do something that's important to them. So going to a supplier portal to say, hey, I'd like to log in here and figure out how to understand when I'm going to get paid, right? So those are the kinds of things that suppliers like to do, and providing forums for them to go and access information that's meaningful for them is, again, a reduction in friction. So they can kind of complement each other that way.
Okay, and that leads nicely into the issue of utilization. So one of the issues that's not talked about that much is the fact that the utilization for automation solutions is somewhat less than people expected. What do you think is causing this, and what can be done about it? And I should just point out that I think there are at least 3 factors that have to be dealt with. One is the vendor reluctance, when I guess it's a little different than what they used to do. I think, Jen, you alluded to that. One is, which we never talk about, is the staff reluctance, the AP staff who may be thinking that, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job if this automation solution comes in. And then, and again, Jen alluded to this, the need for vendors to go outside their normal routines. So you want to talk about that a little bit? Maybe, Jen, you want to start with that?
Yes. So I think for me, like I touched on a little bit, is a vendor reluctance is big for us. Again, most vendors are used to sending in things a certain way, and some of the vendors that we use are smaller vendors, so they, using a tool is not something that they really want to use. They want to stick to their old methods of sending an invoice in, and they're not really open to change. So we have to be considerate of that. And then at the same time, we have the bigger vendors that we're seeing a lot of volume in, and it makes more sense because they're wanting to see how fast their invoices are being taken care of. And if they use the tool, we kind of stress to them, like, you have all this at your fingertips. Instead of relying on calling to get an answer from us, you can see everything in the tool from start to finish, where it is in the process. But at the same time, a lot of training and interaction with the suppliers on how to use a tool. And I think that's the biggest struggle. Once they're in and know how to use it, then they're fine. But to get them there has been the challenge. And then we have hundreds of vendors, and yes, for us we did a phased roll-on approach. But sometimes when you roll certain people on, they're not using the tool right away. So it's always a never-ending kind of thing. So these things come up all the time. And then the last thing I'll touch on is the AP staff. Kind of to your point, it's a new tool, so there's always that reluctance, kind of, to you're used to doing things a certain way. I got comfortable doing it. Now we're introducing something new. Long term, it's going to be really great for us, but right now it's a lot of extra things that we didn't think about. So we're spending a lot more time than we thought we would, with these invoices. But so having them see the picture long term, I think, is important as well. Letting them know that a lot of this manual stuff that we're doing is going away, and long term, in the future, we're gonna invoice automation's the future, and it's gonna make things a lot easier for everyone.
Do you agree, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Jen's really kind of got her finger on the pulse of it. When you think about the reluctance, right? The reluctance from both sides of the party, right? The suppliers have their own reasons for being reluctant, which puts the AP staff in an interesting position, right? Now they're objection handling, right? And they're managing, an expectation upon the supplier and trying to ask the supplier to do something that they might have resistance to, right? So that's not super fun for those folks in the AP staff, right? So if we come back to like giving the suppliers choice and being as friendly friendly an organization as you can to your supply chain, and saying like, look, for these suppliers, you guys have very strategic relationships for us. This type of technology relationship makes sense for us. And for other suppliers, if you don't wish to go all the way to that mile, we have another path for you and we're fine either way. And if you want to come in and join the portal just so you can see the status of your invoice and when you're going to get paid, that works fine for us as well. So managing that kind of reluctance and the friction associated with where that AP staff, all of a sudden they went from just working on supplier invoices, hearing supplier inquiries, looking them up, helping them get paid, to now really asking the suppliers to do something differently than what they've done in the past. That's a different job for them, and that job, as Jen's pointing out, is not just end because we get to 80%. We're at 80% today, but if we don't stay after it, we'll quickly drop to 60 again, right? So being able to have a channel for suppliers that can send invoices any way that they would like, but still achieve the same type of efficiency once that transaction is the what we believe is the right way to be approaching the problem.
Okay, and Mandy?
I agree with both Jen and Matt on this. You're going to experience reluctance from both sides, no matter what it is, that you're changing. So I think educating both sides to the benefits that they're going to see is the ultimate way to get participation with this. And as far as employees go, letting them feel a part of the implementation, and that way they have some ownership of it. So feel that they're more in control. And that they know too, that just because their job's changing, they're not losing their job. It's just, evolving, which everything has to.
All righty. Before we get to tips and advice for the audience, and I know you've got some great tips for them, perhaps we could take a moment to introduce yourself and your company. And so, Mandy, because I have your picture up there, why don't you start?
Of course. I'm Mandy Jenkins. I'm the AP and Purchasing Manager of InterDigital Inc. We're located in Wilmington, Delaware, our headquarters anyway. We're a global company who works to develop the technologies that we're actually using right now, what we use inside our cell phones. So unfortunately, I've been there for almost 4 years, and it's just too smart for me. I can't tell you exactly what it is that we do, but it's important and it's integral to the communication and the visibility.
And Mandy is one of the top 100 influencers in AP. You didn't say that.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I completely forgot. Don't tell Jamie. He'll get me in trouble here. He'll kick me off the list.
All righty. How about you, Jen?
My name is Jennifer Stamper, and I've been with the Capital Group companies for 19 years, and I'm currently AP Accounts Payable Lead Accountant. And Capital Group works primarily with mutual funds.
Okay. And Matt?
Yeah, my name is Matt Wright. I'm the SVP of Customer Success for AppSend. Here at AppSend, we're developing artificial intelligence solutions for autonomous finance operations. And one of the products that we have in the marketplace that's most relevant for our conversation today is our autonomous accounts payable product. And with that tool, we leverage artificial intelligence, natural language processing, machine learning to achieve true autonomous processing for invoices and allow suppliers to submit invoices through any medium that they wish and apply a common set of processing logic to achieve autonomous processing for all of those invoices.
Okay. Now let's get back to an issue that's kind of near and dear to my heart. How important is it to get a representative from AP involved in the selection process for an automation solution? What advice do you have for an AP manager who knows their company is looking at solutions, but they are not being consulted? What can they do to get included? Mandy, how about you start?
Sure. No one knows your system and your processes better than you. So for a company that is looking to automate, if they're not inviting a member of their AP team into this selection process, or it's almost like you're working for the wrong company, right? Like you want they're hiring you for your insights and your intelligence on this. So you would think that they would want to include you. Advice on making sure that you are involved. If you know that your company is looking this way, you're going to have to make a case and advocate for the inclusion of this project.
Matt, do you see this happening frequently?
Thankfully, I don't.
Good
Thankfully,
answer.
I've been selling and implementing accounts payable automation technologies for the better part of 25 years, and always have strong. And they tend to the counterparts that come from accounts payable are generally the most credible expert around the table. I wasn't going to say it. I'm glad that Mandy did. If your organization is selecting an accounts payable product and you're not at the table, I'm not sure what's going to get handed down to you, because it's going to probably be pretty choppy. But I think what we've experienced sometimes in accounts payable is oftentimes accounts payable do feel a little bit threatened, maybe, or reluctant to change. And some organizations might want to navigate around the reluctance to change from accounts payable. So I think as accounts payable leaders, it's important to always be presenting yourself as a change advocate and somebody that is truly, embracing where technology is going, and somebody that is interested in ensuring that your company has the best process in place to solve the invoicing problem.
I like that, Matt. Change advocate. I don't know if you saw, I was writing it down. All right. So whenever I'm getting started on a project, I like to look to somebody who's already done it. So Jen, perhaps you could give the one piece of advice you would give somebody who is just starting on their AP automation project or journey. What would you tell them?
I would definitely reach out to other organizations that have gone through the similar process to see, their takeaways on what were good things that they did right, things that they did wrong. For us, I know we did the pilot phase approach, and I think it worked well. But I think if we would have done a little bit smaller pilot phases and kind of did a little bit more testing live, I think that would have helped a lot, because you can do as much testing as you can, but once you're live in production and you see everything that's happening, that's when you really see, how it works, what's not working. And once you're live, a lot of resources aren't around to help you through that challenging time. So I think if we had given more resources once we have rolled on live, that it would have helped, make it a smoother process across the board.
Okay, Matt?
Yeah, Jen really nailed the big points, which is what have other organizations done? What lessons did they learn? I think is super important. I also think trying the technology is another important step, and it's worth pointing out. As technology has evolved, how you evaluate technology should evolve also. That's one of the things that we're finding in the market is our prospective customers they're not used to buying artificial intelligence technology, and it's a different type of procurement event than a rules-based technology, right? Because a rules-based technology is really, if I can write the rules, if I can say if then else, and then it will do these things, right? But what's really, what you're really evaluating with artificial intelligence technologies is not so much can it integrate and does it work without templates, because those are generally true for artificial intelligence tools, is the learning aspect. How well does the tool learn? Does it learn the important elements of the transaction that I'm continually having to invest human energy in? So we advocate looking at procuring technology a little bit differently, and it really it involves trying it. And working with a technology vendor that is willing to invest in the effort of trying. And to try learning means you have to make a commitment, and there has to be some volume associated, so you can see invoices go through and let the technology learn and see what happens when something like that transaction comes through again. Did it learn? Did it get better? Did it improve? Did I have to turn dials? Did I have to adjust rules? In artificial intelligence, the premise is you don't turn dials, you don't change rules. It improves automatically over time. So that's what you really want to feel from artificial intelligence procurement is its learning ability and its ability to improve over time without requiring additional effort from IT or the vendor to make it better.
Okay. And Jen?
No, you mean Mandy.
Mandy, I meant Mandy, right? I said
No.
Mandy. I always think of you as Jen, probably because of your last name.
One piece of advice I would give is just to know your processes and what you want the prospective solution to achieve. When I came into this project, I had a shopping list ready, and I wasn't going to make concessions with what I needed and how I needed it to work with my system. So that, I interviewed at least a dozen, if not more, solution providers, and I was able to, to X some of those off of my list just based upon what they could not do for me. It's not a one size fits all either. So you want the solution provider to fit your needs, not the other way around.
Okay. And now moving forward, Mandy, what can the business community expect with regards to AP automation in the next few years? What do you see on the horizon?
Well, I'm hoping, much like Matt said, that the full utilization of the AI technology, so it learns as it goes, and we're working smarter, not harder, and less manual. So our AP teams can focus on more of the back end items and
Okay.
just making sure that everything flows through the automation system as it should.
Okay. And now the real Jen. By the way, you were one of the 100 top influencers also, weren't you?
I don't, I'm not sure.
Well, in my book, you are, and yes, I do think you were.
So for me, I'd say as AP automation progresses, that everyone's challenges get recognized and worked through. That this will continue to ensure AP automation it becomes better over time, and that all the challenges that we see with vendors and the AP teams that as we use the tools that more progress will be made, so that way in the future everything runs a lot more smoothly and more effective and efficient.
Okay. And Matt, I left you for last on purpose because I think I'm really interested to hear what you have to say.
Well, that's a nice way of you saying because you might be the most winded.
No,
I'll
no.
I'll try to keep it brief. Yeah, so I think what we're going to see is really exciting. We're really standing on what I believe is of the first real step change in accounts payable automation, right? And we at AppSend, we like to use the phrase autonomous. And what that means is gaining independence from the technology. There's been a lot of automation, right, where we can automate a routine or automate the extraction. But autonomous processing is really taking the invoice transaction from the AP inbox all the way to OK to pay without human intervention involved, and doing that in a scalable way across all invoice transactions without heavy reliance on IT, and seeing constant improvement as it gets better and better to adapt to the fluidity that is just natural with a supply chain, not something that is static and built for the supply chain that exists at the moment, but something that can adapt and grow over time, and something that can accommodate all of the various input channels that arrive in accounts payable. Right, we've talked about a number of those channels today, right? There's the manual channel where invoices come through the AP inbox. There's invoices that through a supplier network like the ASN or the Coupa supplier network or other e-invoicing channels. Then there's a lot of organizations that have a lot of EDI coming into their business.
I know.
And EDI is really just an extraction technology. When you get to the end of the day, that transaction has to be validated and has to have all of the same accounting principles applied to it. So our objective when we think about how we're going to provide autonomous processing for accounts payable is we want to be able to accept all invoicing channels and apply a common set of logic and rules that are continually learning and processing those transactions, applying accounting things, identifying first approvers, PO line matching, price and quantity exceptions, all of those things happening in one platform platform, regardless of the input channel, and serving those to the stream systems in the most efficient manner possible. That technology hasn't existed until recently, and I think we're starting to see organizations wake up to the opportunity that it represents, and that it stands right next to like Jen's ASN, right? She's going to put a ton of work into getting suppliers onboarded on that, but she won't get all of them. She'll want some technology that can streamline the rest of the transactions, and having technology with artificial intelligence embedded is really what we're going to see that represent this really significant step change in achieving autonomous processing for accounts payable.
So it sounds like it's going to be a really exciting future.
I am super excited. I've been in the industry for a long time, and this is one of the most exciting advances I've been a part of. So I think it's going to be a very exciting few years.
I agree. There are 5 sessions in our AP Technology Week programs. We've put them together all in a playlist. You can watch them now. A link will be in the show notes, and on YouTube, a link will appear momentarily on your screen. As always, I greatly appreciate your thumbs up, your comments, your shares, and your subscribes.